The Dallas Cowboys have officially kicked off their mandatory minicamp, and just like clockwork, we're already seeing big headlines starting to take shape. Every year there's drama, there's hype, and there are questions we're all dying to see answered on the field. But before that even starts, there's a ton to unpack just based on who showed up, what moves are being made, and what kind of energy this team is bringing into the building. First and foremost, there's confirmation that both Micah Parsons and Trevon Diggs are in attendance. That right there is major. Micah being there isn't a surprise, not really, but people were wondering just how involved he'd be. Will he actually participate? Or is this one of those hold-in situations where a player shows up to avoid the fines, stays in meetings, maybe even suits up, but doesn't do much of anything on the field? It wouldn't be shocking if that's what Micah ends up doing, especially with his contract situation in the background. But even if he's not taking reps, him being present means a lot. He's one of the emotional leaders of this team. He's the guy others look to in terms of effort, intensity, and focus. Having him in the room around the coaches, immersed in the playbook, even if he's not in pads, is valuable. That's the kind of presence that can elevate the standard during a slow part of the offseason. Trevon Diggs, on the other hand, isn't expected to be active on the field at all, which makes sense. He's still recovering from injury, and this time of year is not when you rush things. But just like with Micah, Diggs being in the building matters. It says a lot about his approach and how locked in he still is with his team, even as he works his way back to full strength. It keeps him connected with the locker room and gives the staff a chance to see where he is in the rehab process. Plus, let's be honest, him showing up means he avoids those nasty fines, and that's never a bad incentive to stay close by. Now shifting focus to someone who's making waves in the best possible way. Tyler Guyton, the young offensive tackle, is showing that he's serious about making a leap this year. He posted a picture recently of him getting an extra work with none other than Tyron Smith. That's right, the Tyron Smith. Cowboys royalty. Even though Tyron has moved on from his time with Dallas, the fact that he's still mentoring young players, still helping shape the next generation, says everything about his love for the game and his respect for the organization. For Guyton, this is massive. Not just because Tyron's an all-time great, but because Guyton himself knows that last season wasn't good enough. He's been vocal about needing to improve, about making changes, and that's great to hear. But it's the action that matters more. And training with someone like Tyron is exactly the kind of action that tells you this guy is dead serious about stepping up. The Cowboys need him to. There's no way around that. The offensive line had its struggles last season, and Guyton was part of the inconsistency. If he's going to be one of the key pieces up front, this is the time to start proving he's up for the challenge. Working with Tyron might not fix everything overnight, but it's a strong step in the right direction. Especially for a player who didn't get the benefit of that mentorship when he first arrived in Dallas. It's not just about technique or weight training. It's about mindset, about learning what it means to be a professional, to grind through the long season, to prepare for the mental and physical battles in the trenches. And look, when you see stuff like this in June, it builds hope. Hope that maybe this year is when it all clicks. Hope that guys who underperformed last season are taking things seriously now. And that kind of hope is what carries fans through the long wait until kickoff. But while one young player is making the right kind of noise, there are other rumblings that could end up affecting the Cowboys in a very different way. The Texans made a move that turned heads by signing Nick Chubb to a one-year deal worth up to $5 million. Now, we don't have the full breakdown of guarantees just yet, but you can safely assume that a solid chunk, probably $2.5 million, is locked in. That's significant because Chubb joins a backfield that already features Joe Mixon and recently added rookie Woody Marks. So where does that leave Dameon Pierce? It's looking more and more like Pierce is on the outside looking in. Last season, he completely fell out of favor in Houston. He was barely used for most of the year until he exploded with one big game against the Titans in Week 18. A game that didn't mean much for either team. Sure, he had a 92-yard run that made the highlight reels, but that came against a defense that had basically checked out. Before that, Pierce was barely a factor. He had one solid game against the Patriots, but for the most part, he just wasn't involved. And now with Chubb and Mixon in the picture, plus a rookie the Texans invested real draft capital in, the writing might be on the wall. Which brings us back to Dallas, because Pierce has been mentioned as a potential target for the Cowboys before. And with the way things are shaping up, there's a realistic chance he becomes available, either by trade or as a post-camp cut. The question is, should the Cowboys actually be interested? And that's a little tricky. On the surface, adding a player like Pierce, who's still young and has flashed legitimate upside, sounds like a smart move, especially if the price is low. But Dallas already has several running backs who fit into that same maybe category. Javonte Williams, Miles Sanders, Rico Dowdle, even Deuce Vaughn to a point. None of them are locked-in stars, and all come with questions. So what exactly would Pierce add to that mix? Would he be clearly better? Would he take on a lead role? Or is he just another dart throw? If Pierce gets cut and comes cheap, that's a different story. Low risk, low commitment, you can take a flyer and see what happens. But if it's a trade situation, that changes the equation. That means you're investing something, either money, picks, or both, and expecting some kind of return. And in that case, you have to wonder if he's really worth the gamble when you already have a crowded backfield full of uncertainty. Now let's dive deeper into the big picture implications here. Because what's happening with Dameon Pierce and the Texans might just be a small part of a much larger puzzle, especially when you consider what's happening across the league, and more importantly, what's brewing in Dallas. The Cowboys' running back room is already packed with wildcards. We're talking about a group where almost every name has potential, sure, but also brings a fair share of risk. Javonte Williams is coming off injury and hasn't been able to truly return to his early career form. Miles Sanders had a rough year and seems more like a rotational piece than a real difference maker. Then you've got younger guys who are still trying to prove them belong, and no one has truly separated themselves. So the idea of adding another unpredictable option like Pierce feels like more the same, and maybe that's the problem. Some point, you've got to stop stockpiling possibilities and start locking in production. You can't build a reliable offense hoping that one of 5 maybes turns into a legit starter. That's not team building, that's gambling. It makes sense if you're in full rebuild mode, trying to see who sticks, but that's not where the Cowboys are. They're trying to win now. This is a team with playoff expectations, with a defense that's championship caliber, and with a quarterback who, whether you believe in him or not, is in a window where he needs help. You can't surround him with question marks and expect consistency. That brings us back to this idea of how the Cowboys approach the remaining offseason. Do they play it safe? Stick with what they've got and hope someone breaks out in camp? Or do they go out and make a move that actually shifts the balance, maybe not for a star, but at least for someone who brings some stability to the backfield? Because even if Dameon Pierce becomes available, he may not be that guy. He might flash again. He might even regain his rookie year form, but there's no guarantee. And it's not like he's bringing elite pass catching skills or game breaking speed. So if you're Dallas, the better strategy might be to hold out for a clearer, more consistent solution. Maybe someone who's proven they can carry the load over a full season. Someone who doesn't just look good in week 18, blowouts or preseason hype videos. And while we're on the subject of value, let's talk about the wide receiver market, which is spiraling into absolute madness. Just look at the Rashad Bateman extension. 3 years, $36 million, $20 million guaranteed for a guy who's never had a 1,000-yard season, never even sniffed that level of production. And yet, he's getting paid like a borderline top-tier wideout. That deal didn't just raise eyebrows, it reset the floor for what decent but not spectacular receivers are going to expect. But before we continue, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and give this video a like. Your support helps us keep bringing you the latest updates on the Dallas Cowboys. Feel free to share your thoughts on the news in the comments as well. The NFL world is buzzing with whispers and speculation as one of the most talked about potential moves this offseason might be unfolding right before our eyes. Rumors are swirling that Demarcus Lawrence, the Dallas Cowboys' standout defensive end, could be making a surprising comeback to the team that once made him a household name. Fans and analysts alike are scratching their heads, trying to piece together what this could mean for the Cowboys and the league as a whole. Lawrence's name has long been associated with relentless pressure on quarterbacks and a tenacious presence on the defensive line. Known for his explosive first step and ability to disrupt offenses, he quickly became a fan favorite and a cornerstone of Dallas's defense. However, recent seasons have been marked by questions about his health, consistency, and his status within the team. The buzz about a potential return suggests something is brewing behind closed doors, and the Cowboys might be quietly plotting to bring back their defensive ace. While the NFL is no stranger to surprises, the idea of Lawrence returning to Dallas has sent shockwaves across fan bases and media circles. Could this be the missing piece in the Cowboys' defensive puzzle? With their ongoing quest for championship glory, adding a familiar and formidable force like Lawrence back into the mix could ignite their pass rush and change the dynamics of their defensive strategy. The possibility alone has sparked endless discussions among experts, some skeptical and others optimistic about how this move could reshape the team's fortunes. The Cowboys front office has been tight-lipped, fueling the rumor mill even more. Sources close to the organization have hinted at ongoing talks and potential contract negotiations, but nothing concrete has been confirmed. The lack of official statements only fans the flames of speculation. Could Dallas be planning a bold move to re-sign a player who once led their defense in sacks and was instrumental in many of their biggest wins? The intrigue deepens as the NFL offseason progresses, and every cryptic tweet or vague comment from insiders adds another layer to this developing story. Meanwhile, the league's landscape remains fiercely competitive. Other teams are also making their moves, bolstering rosters and chasing free agents. But the Cowboys might have a trick up their sleeve that no one expected. Demarcus Lawrence returning would not just be a sentimental homecoming, it could be a strategic masterstroke, signaling Dallas's intent to reclaim their status as a defensive powerhouse. Of course, this is all speculative at this point, and the truth will only come to light as negotiations unfold and official announcements are made. For now, the NFL community watches eagerly, dissecting every rumor and weighing the possibilities. Could Demarcus Lawrence's potential return be the game changer that the Cowboys and their fans have been waiting for? If this whisper turns into reality, the ripple effects could be felt across the league, and the Cowboys' defense could be poised for a thrilling resurgence. That's it for this update. If you enjoyed the video and want to keep receiving exclusive news about the Dallas Cowboys, please subscribe to our channel and give this video a like. We always look forward to your comments and opinions. See you in the next video.